Hi everyone, and welcome to the Stitch Sessions. If you're new here, thank you for coming and hanging out with me today. If you're not new here, welcome back. It's so good to have you. Today we are working on a stitch tutorial, and this stitch in particular has been on my brain for a long time because there was a previous project that I worked on recently that I kept calling the stitch I was working on, which was actually the crunch stitch. I kept calling it the grit stitch. And they're actually not similar, but they feel similar. I guess it was just I was getting tongue-tied. So I thought it would be best to create a stitch tutorial on the grit stitch so that you could see the actual difference in the stitch. So that's what we're going to work on today. And it's a really easy stitch. It's reversible. It only takes one row to create it. And it's perfect for all kinds of projects you can do. Blankets, of course, scarves, hats, mitts, tops, cardigans, like basically anything you can imagine. So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to work it in a flat project. That means we're going to be working it in rows back and forth. So let's get started. Okay, so for today's project, I'm going to be using Bernat Softy Baby yarn in this lovely navy marine color. It's just gorgeous. Now, this is considered a lightweight yarn number 3, in case you're curious, and it comes in 140 gram balls, in case you'd like to use this color for an upcoming project of your own. And for this, I am using a 5mm crochet hook, which is also known as an 8 or a size H. And for any of your crochet projects, you should always have a handy pair of scissors and a darning needle on hand to sew in any of your ends. So here we go. Let's get started on our grit stitch. So to begin, you want to place a slip knot on your hook. And this stitch requires a multiple count of 2. So you can chain up the number of chains you need to create your desired length for your project, but make sure it's in multiples of 2, and then you're going to add 1 at the end. So for this project, I'm going to chain up 16. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15, and 16. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1. So this stitch is done in multiples of 2 plus 1. So I have 1 more right there at the end. Okay, so I now have 17 chains. Okay, now we're going to begin our actual grit stitch. So you want to now find the 3rd chain from your hook. So you never count the loop that's on the hook. So we count 1, 2, and 3, and into that 3rd chain we're going to place a double crochet stitch. So you just want to insert your hook, pull up a loop, and then resolve a double crochet stitch just like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is you are going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch you're going to place a single crochet just like that. And now back into the very same stitch, and you can see it's stretching out a little bit, but don't panic. You're going to place a double crochet back into that same stitch. So you'll pull through 2, and you'll pull through 2. And your first chain, you know, those chains are going to get stretched. That's a-okay. And then you continue. You skip the next stitch into the following stitch. You place a single crochet. And then you go back into that same stitch and you place a double crochet. So I think you can see where we're going here. So this is basically the stitch pattern. You then skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch you place a single and then a double. You skip the next stitch, and then you place a single and a double back into the same stitch. So every second stitch is going to get 2 different stitches placed into it. Yeah? So you skip the next one into the following. You have a single crochet and you have a double that goes right back into that stitch. So see, it's not too crazy, it's not difficult. It's just a matter of remembering the pattern. So you have single and then double. So I have a couple more here, so I'm just going to, whoops, I'm just going to do it with you. Okay, skip the next into the next. You have a single and you have a double. Okay, and then you have at the end of the row here, you have 2 stitches. You skip the next one. Into the last stitch, you're only going to place a single crochet. Just like that. And that keeps this number of our stitches nice and even. So row 1 is looking like that. May not be able to see any texture just yet. And see how the chain's got a little stretch, but that's okay. So now we are going to continue this pattern in subsequent rows. So when you reach the end of row 1, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And you are going to go back into that same stitch and you're going to double crochet. So essentially that chain 1 is going to count as a single crochet. Okay, so you're going to yarn over, go back into that same stitch, and that is now going to count as a single crochet and a double. Then you're going to skip the next stitch, which is actually the top of our double crochet from the previous row, and you're going to go into the next stitch, which is the single crochet of the previous row. And into there, you're going to single crochet, and then you're going to double crochet. Okay, and then you're going to skip the next stitch again into the following one. See, if you stretch a little bit, you can see it's easy to find. So you're going to place a single crochet first, and then you're going to yarn over and place a double crochet. And I think you get the gist. Skip the next one into the next one. You place a single and then a double. So this is, like I said, it's a 1 row repeat. Okay, so you just keep repeating the same thing for every row. And it's just basically meant to create this really subtle and pretty texture. So it's 2 stitches into 1. And as you work subsequent rows, the stitches get much easier to see. So see, when you stretch it out, it's easy to find. So single crochet into there. And then we have a double crochet. Okay, skip the next 2 into the next one. Single crochet. And then we have a double crochet. Just like that. And then of course we have 1 stitch and then we have that chain. So make sure that you don't lose out on that. So sometimes people just go into that last stitch, but it's the last stitch and then there's a chain right next to it. You want to work the chain right next to it. So that was the chain 1 of the previous row. If you can get 2 loops, that would be great. I insert into there and that is where I place my last single crochet. Okay, so row 2 is complete. And you just want to stretch it out like that. So your work is looking something like that. So as you can see, it looks both the same on the back as it does on the front. Oh, I love this pretty blue. It's coming out really nicely. And then you continue to repeat it. So for the next row, which in my case is row 3, I chain 1, turn my work, and right back into that very first stitch, I place a double crochet. Remember, in this case, the chain 1 counts as your single crochet. And then you proceed. You skip a stitch into the next stitch, you single and double. Skip the next stitch and you can see it's sitting right there waiting for you. A single and a double. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and work up several more rows so that you can really get a chance to see what a full swatch of this pretty stitch is going to look like. And then I'll come back to show you guys just what your grit stitch is going to look like. Okay, so I have done up 12 rows here, and now you can see the texture is coming through a little bit more. Now you can see a little bit more of a substantial swatch. So this is how it would look if it was looked at it vertically. And here it is horizontally. So it's just it's a subtle texture, but it's just really very delicate. I think it's a classy looking stitch. And again, it would be pretty for baby blankets, just airy enough maybe for a springtime baby, but still, you know, still cozy, and would make for a lovely scarf or hat. Super easy to make. Again, it's just a really fun way to use basic stitches and make them look a little bit more interesting. It almost has a bit of a feathered look as well. So there you are. That is the official grit stitch, different from the crunch stitch. So this stitch we have worked on in a flat project. Stay tuned because I will do another tutorial on how you can work this stitch pattern in the round. So for example, if you wanted to use it to create a cowl or a hat, sometimes there's a little bit of an adjustment you need to make to work on certain stitches in the round. But stay tuned for that. Those are coming up in the future. So right now, this is working on a flat project, 1 row repeat. I hope you found it easy. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment in the comment box down below. And if you like a stitch tutorial and you'd like to see more stitch tutorials, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and that way I'll know to keep doing more of these types of tutorials for you. Okay, so have an amazing day, guys. Good luck with your grit stitch projects. Make sure to tag me on Instagram. Let me see what project you have decided to make with your grit stitch, okay? And I will see you guys in the next tutorial. So take good care, have an amazing day, and happy crocheting. Bye-bye.